So, Roblox recently deleted all my accounts, but before I get into how that happened, or why that happened, I have to begin by explaining what led to this ban. So, it all starts in September 2024. A user had joined my group by the name of Oracle Crafts. He rose up the ranks, he became a senior officer, everything was fine. But one day, Oracle Craft had approached me, revealing that he was someone who I'd known prior, and after keeping me guessing, he would unveil his true identity known as Nord Loyaltat, an old friend and an old loyalist of mine around the year 2018. But most people would know Nord by his most recent name, StahlRichterian. So going forward, we'll just call him as Stahl. So I learned Stahl is really this Nord Loyaltat guy, and Stahl tells me how he used to run his own group at this map called Checkpoint Vienna. Sound a little familiar? Well, it turns out that Stahl's group failed, but not because the map was bad or anything, but because rather his group was inactive, unlike Octavium. I found that to be very interesting. So what does Stahl do? Well, he offers to sell this map to me for $600. But that was way too much. I mean, there's no way I was going to pay him that much money. So I decided to stick with our current game, which was Border Fortress Vindicator and Mount Invictus and Outskirts of Nevada. But these maps were laggy, filled with bugs, they were rushed, they were put together by a very lackluster development team, not that active. So Stahl and I came to another discussion where I said, okay, you know what, let's do this. So I gave him 50% of profits for 1 full year, as well as full power over the group as a console. After speaking to my top guys, Wilhelm and Howard Rosenberg, who were second and third command of my group Octavium, we signed a contract with Stahl, which basically was a safety net in case we kicked Stahl out to steal his map and whatnot. Which was fine. We weren't going to kick him out. We weren't going to do anything mischievous. And at no point did we do that. So we launched this group. We launched the map known as Checkpoint Madrid. And all is well. As weeks go by, the map remains active. It's full of updates. It's full of content. The player base is enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. We're getting like 80 people on some days. But Stahl would often go in game to use his power very generously, very grandiosely. And he would call for rallies and parades and teleport everyone to him, amongst other things, out of the blue, which, if you were in game, you had to attend his events. You would get banned. If you were in a train, it didn't matter if you were training people, it didn't matter if you were guarding me, you had to attend these events, or you would literally be banned from the game. But, you know, I let him do his own thing. I'm like, well, he gave us this map, and yeah, sure, it's a little annoying, but, you know, whatever. It's, you know, it's a once-a-week kind of thing. I'll go online and do something weird, whatever. But it got worse. Stahl would interfere in divisions, he was freaking his own guys, he was replacing people who were very active and loyal, and Stahl became more and more controversial. So Stahl and I had to sit down, and I laid down some boundaries. Stahl, you know, was like a little, you know, upset about it, but he was like, whatever. I'll just do the development, I'll just do this, and I'll only use power if I need to. And so, up until November of 2024, Stahl respected those boundaries. But he would still piss people off. And, you know, he would ban people if they pissed him off. He would remove them from the Discord server, even if it was just a criticism of the map. I mean, he fired the entire development team just because they disagreed with him and his vision. You know, Stahl would release game passes like the Jetpack Game Pass, so people could jetpack around the map in this 80s retro style aesthetic in a group that's set in 1950s Spain. And over time, Stahl became more and more unstable, doing more and more things that pissed people off, which led to his breaking point. The development team, which was getting fired by Stahl, decided to make a plan B in order to finally get back their ranks and continue working on the group. So their plan B was to make a new map to replace Madrid in order to get rid of Stahl for once and for all. They also proposed some weird ideas like just removing Stahl and then re-ranking him if we DMCA'd, and it worked, but obviously I didn't sign off on any of those plans. I told the dev team, I said, look, if you make a new map and it's really good and it's really active, then I'll talk to Stahl and, you know, we'll just stop using Madrid. You know, obviously it's not like the contract said if I remove Stahl and the map that he's going to retaliate. So I said, sure, whatever. And I said, finish the map first. and then if it all works out, I'll sign off on it. But a developer by the name of Hitakru would leak this to Stahl. Really because he got fired from being premier and he wasn't that active, and he promised to put a lot of money into the group and bring in members, and he was kind of an all talk, no walk kind of guy. So he goes to Stahl and tells him everything. They're working on a map. I'm going to sign off on it. And, I mean, he exaggerated this plan as being my plan, that it's all me and that I'm trying to work against him. And so what does Stahl do? He gets upset. He went in game, tore down all the statues of me, tore down every portrait of me, and then ghosted the group. No one knew why he did these things. And I was like, that's weird. Well, whatever. I'll just ignore it. But after a couple of days, we would log on Madrid, as we usually do, and Madrid be content deleted. Apparently, it broke the DMCA laws. Interesting, because Stahl was still ranked architect, he still had his 50%, and even though he ghosted us for a week straight, we didn't touch anything regarding his rank or his percentage. So, I immediately presented the contract to Roblox that me and Stahl had signed. Stahl was still ranked with his 50%, and so we filed our counter DMCA. And although the first few attempts failed, we finally learned how to file a proper counter DMCA, and Roblox did unban the game about 14 days later. So we celebrated our victory. We thought that we had won over Stahl. But within days of restoring it, Madrid once again was taken down. This time for a different asset in Madrid that apparently another developer had built. So what do? We filed another counter DMCA, presenting the contract, swearing on an affidavit that we do own the rights to the map because of said contract. And we also re-upload our other maps like Nevada and Vindicator and Invictus, as mentioned earlier. Well, Roblox looked at this counter DMCA. They studied it, they reviewed it and whatever else. And while they were reviewing it, we would use our other maps and we would re-upload Madrid on alt as a temporary solution while the main game was under review. Well, Stahl didn't like that we were uploading his map on these alt accounts, so what does Stahl do? He decides to also DMCA Nevada, Invictus, and Vindicator, even though he had never touched these maps. Stahl was pissed, and he even DMCA'd maps from 5 years ago. We have a map that I had made in 2020, 4 years before Stahl was even made developer in Octavium, that Stahl was able to somehow DMCA me on. A map that me, StahlRichterian, and Shunroku Taishiro had built. No one else had touched this map. It would be impossible. I was there when it was built. We even had a base plate map called the Octavian Assembly. It had one building that I watched a developer build by hand that got deleted. The map got DMCA. So anyway, this was catastrophic. Officers were retiring, morale was decreasing, we were having meetings, and there would be like 10 people showing up these officer meetings. It was terrible. Developers constantly had to re-upload these maps as a temp fix, and they would get taken down days later. The group would panic every time. So, every 2 weeks, Madrid would be restored. There were other maps we made, like Toulouse, that we would upload and restore. And, I thought that eventually it would just all end. I thought, 2 months would pass, and I'm like, okay, this is the 5th time we're doing this. Surely Roblox is realizing now that this is a weird glitch in the system. Surely after the second or third restoration of Madrid, Stahl would run out of assets to copyright. That, he would run out of asset IDs to report us for that belonged to us, really. Unfortunately, days later, Madrid would again be taken down. And eventually, instead of just copyrighting the assets, Stahl would copyright the game ID. And he did this with all of our games, as a matter of fact. We couldn't just go into the game and remove an asset. He was saying the entire game was stolen, which is not true. So, I would find out eventually that what Stahl was doing was that he would make a new account with a new email, and that he was using the original map from this original group called Austria, and so he would DMCA from these new accounts, making a new email, and that's why Roblox would all of a sudden forget about it. They'd be like, oh, this is a new person, a new email, DMCAing this group. No, it was Stahl the whole time, just on a new email and a new account. And he would just transfer ownership every time. Some of the accounts were so obviously an alt they would have been made a month before the DMCA, and they'd be called things like Alexander Doomkampf or Alexander Schweihoff. Literal accounts made to ridicule me. And Roblox would say, no, this is a real person. This is not Stahl's. And they would proceed to the DMCA. So, after, finding this out, I'll get to how he was doing this and what would happen with this. But the real question people are probably asking is, how is Stahl DMCAing these other games that he didn't touch? How is he DMCAing these games that we counter DMCA'd in one, and yet he's still DMCAing? Well, to be honest with you guys, we never found out how he was doing this. But a couple of theories that we have was that Stahl would steal the game using exploits, upload them under a group or another account, and then DMCA them, saying that he originally made these games. And Roblox would just not check the date or anything and just delete them, assuming that Stahl was telling the truth. Another theory was that the assets that we use in our other games were also used in Madrid. For instance, obviously, we have uniforms that we make since the beginning. And these uniforms are in all of our maps, right? Well, what Roblox might be doing is they're seeing that we have these uniforms in Madrid, and they're like, oh, well, these uniforms in Madrid are also in Nevada. So they must have stolen the Madrid uniforms and put them in Nevada, even though they were made way before Madrid. But that wouldn't make any sense, because how do you explain the map called Edo that was made 5 years ago? Nothing that we use in our groups today are from that map. That would be impossible, right? Nothing in that map is high quality enough to be recycled to be used in any of our groups. And the group it was for a Japanese group. So there's no way any of that could be linked to Octavium. So really, it could just be that he's stealing the maps and reporting them as if they were his own, which would be an extremely broken system. It's very scary if that is true, but honestly, I couldn't tell you. Anyway, so this DMCA war continued for months. This lasted until probably about May. Roblox would literally reinstate the game, and I'd email Roblox saying, hey, can you guarantee that now that we've won this DMCA case, that our game can not be shut down again? If they're still able to DMCA it. To which they would swear up and down to me that, no, you're good. They would literally say, look, you're good. You're not going to get DMCA. We have no pending DMCAs for your map. You're all good. You have won the case. That's not word for word, but that's essentially what they would say. So, and I'd also tell them, like, hey, like, in the next hour or in the next day, you're gonna get a DMCA for this map, and it's gonna be Stahl on the same account. I'd literally say, look, that group that tried DMCAing me just switched ownerships to a new account, which is clearly just Stahl on a new account. And they would say, yeah, no worries. We've not received any DMCAs, don't worry about it. And then not even hours later, the game would be DMCA'd. And then I would reply and say, hey, I thought you said we were good. And they would respond with the same exact responses. They would respond in a different thread. Oh no, like this was a legitimate DMCA. And restart the process over and over again. We were doing this at least, 10 times a month. In the 7 to 8 months that we were doing this, there's probably over like 50 counter DMCAs that we had filed and won. So I'm not sure if the Roblox DMCA agents are just straight up AI, or if they have a very strict protocol where if they don't do it by that protocol, they get fired, and that's why they're not going off the track to fix the situation. I'm not really sure. But that's not the point of this story. The main reason why I'm making this video is because Octurnus, which is the holder account that I use to hold my group Octavium, would often get deleted because of us re-uploading the games. Now, Roblox, every time we want to counter the DMCA, would unban the account. And so, after the game was reinstated the last time it was DMCA'd, which was last May, they unbanned the account. So, Stahl and I had a sit-down discussion. We resolved everything. We agreed to a deal, and we ended the DMCA war. I agreed to pay him some money. It was all resolved. So, after Stahl emailed Roblox to unban Octurnus, and after it was all resolved, I found out 4 hours before Octurnus was unbanned that all of my alt accounts, all of my holder accounts, including my main account, Alexander, was banned. Again, this happened 4 hours before the account was unbanned. Roblox would then establish this enforcement ban. Some people call it an IP ban or a hardware ban. I would find out that this was the ban that I was given on all these accounts. So Octurnus was unbanned, but all my other accounts were banned, even after Octurnus was reinstated. So, and for the record, apparently if you're logged into any other accounts while your main account is banned, that could be another reason for why your account got banned. But at this point in time, I had not logged into any of my accounts. So even if that was the case for why they did that, it would not count. I was literally at work when my account was banned and unbanned. I was away from my computer. There would have been no way for me to log on the account. So this includes the accounts Alexander, Octandia, Octlatium, Octomus, Ocsanctus, Alexander TOH, Freya's Holding, Richter Manager, Richterian SCPF, Zaenderia, and Monkey Aikman 776. Some of these accounts are accounts I've been logged into since 2021. Some of these accounts are accounts that I don't even really own or run anymore. Like Ocsanctus was compromised by my IRL friend Howard, and it's been ran by him the last few months. At least until it got deleted. Why is it that Roblox is banning these accounts when half of them I'm not even actively on? Some of them are holder accounts that I might have created at one point, but I don't actively run them. It's a very weird system, and it's a very flawed system because obviously Roblox is just juggling these accounts and saying, just to be safe, let's just ban them, even because Alexander at one point in his life had logged into it. What does that mean for my roommates, who I was staying with for a month? Would his accounts be banned because we shared the same IP address? What does that mean for my cousin, who plays Roblox, who logged on my computer to log in his account? Or my other friend that was over the other day? Are they also at risk of one of these enforcement bans down the road? It's a very flawed system, and it's very scary. So, as anyone would, I appealed on Alexander, whilst also sending an email to the DMCA agents on Octurnus and some other accounts, to which they responded, "We can't handle this request because Alexander is owned on a separate email account." So, I was like, okay, so I wrote another appeal using the Alexander email, as anyone would. And, within hours, it was auto-rejected by AI. I got an AI response. I sent another one, got another AI response over and over and over again. So, I appealed using a different, instead of appealing for a banned alt or whatever, I started to appeal because of a user ID. I said, okay, my account was banned for a DMCA notice that was sent a month ago. And then finally, I would get a response from a human. But they still rejected it. They used the same copy-paste response, and they would send the same thing over and over again. That I was terminated for misusing Roblox systems. And I explained to them, I said, look, I wasn't misusing your systems. I wasn't even on the account when Octurnus got deleted. This reasoning is literally invalid because of the fact that no action on my part or of my conduct has even remotely met the criteria set by Roblox themselves underneath the subsection evading safety and security systems and disruptive content and behavior. None of this makes any sense. Even by TOS standards, I have broken nothing. They just logged on and said, oh, we're going to ban these accounts because at one point you were logged onto them. Now, had I logged on Alexander while Octurnus was banned or deleted and they had banned me, that would have been a little bit more justified. But then you have the point that Octurnus got unbanned because it was a false DMCA. That is two great points as to why they shouldn't have, they should have unbanned the accounts after Octurnus' ban was lifted. So, because the original account was terminated, all these accounts were banned. And even though the original account Octurnus was reinstated, that doesn't mean the other accounts get unbanned, according to the Roblox moderation team, contrary to what the TOS would imply. Of course, appeal after appeal, it was the same decline after same decline after same decline. Being told that my account was moderated for violating Roblox TOS, and that furthermore, that the consequences were applied based on severity of recent violations. Of course, recent violations meaning the previous bans and deletions from the DMCAs. Alexander got banned at one point for rippling the map. Octurnus got banned for rippling the map, but these DMCAs were countered Therefore, the violations would be removed, if not flat out revoked. Not a single map has not been counter DMCA'd. And one. So none of those violations should be upheld because no crime has been committed. So they don't consider that reasoning to be valid because every single DMCA was launched by Stahl. And that's the problem. That's the point of this video, is that there is a weird loophole where apparently if you get unbanned after being banned for a DMCA and you get unbanned because of a counter DMCA that you won, they still don't unban the alt accounts if they decide that they're going to IP ban you through this new enforcement ban. And well, because of these unique circumstances of the ban, I'd like to, optimistically assume that the reason Roblox has still not unbanned these accounts is because they have not yet ran into the situation yet before. Where they do an enforcement ban, and right before they unban the main account, they decide they're going to ban all the alt accounts. So I'm not sure if Roblox staff is just a bunch of AIs who can't figure out what the ban was unreasonable for, or if it's just super strict protocol that they're trying to follow. But what we do know from this situation is that Roblox enforcement bans are an extremely overpowered tool, which, if issued, are extremely hard to appeal. Even if your main account was banned and then unbanned. I'm hoping that this video will receive attention from YouTubers like RubenSim or Banastic or even Root Media, who have previously covered me and my group in the past. So that way the HRs at Roblox can see that this bug is a major problem and is extremely overpowered. I mean, the worst part is that if these accounts don't get banned, these accounts hold tens of thousands of Robux. They hold dozens of groups relevant to my game Madrid. If they don't get unbanned, the gameplay of my game is going to be affected. The income that my game receives will be affected. Years and years of data is gone. That means these accounts will be lost for literally no reason. Simply because Roblox's enforcement ban system is broken and doesn't undo itself if the main account is unbanned. This is extremely dangerous, and I've noticed that enforcement bans are becoming increasingly more common. Every day I look and there's more of them being handed out to people for minimal crimes, and rarely do they unban an account if they were given an enforcement ban. So the chances of this happening to someone else is probably really high. There are probably people out there that were banned and then unbanned, but now they have 20 holder accounts that are still banned, and Roblox won't fix it because they have not ran into this before. There isn't a protocol to unban all of the alt accounts that are handed enforcement bans if the main account was unbanned. So this would be a major catastrophe to my group, and it would require me to waste a lot of time and money to rebuild for basically no reason. Stahl and I made peace. Even if there is a DMCA that Roblox feels was legitimate, Stahl already said in his last email that there is no reason to continue this. He will hand over the maps and their rights. I have won this DMCA war, and we move on. I don't even blame Stahl for why I'm in this situation. This is completely Roblox's situation, and it's their responsibility. But the situation is so incredibly stupid because had Stahl withdrew his DMCA just hours prior, we wouldn't be here. If Roblox had just not done an enforcement ban over a ban that I could have easily counter DMCA'd, we wouldn't be here in the first place. It's also stupid because Roblox had banned Nocturnus dozens of times prior to this, including multiple deletions. And they decided to issue this hardware ban on the last DMCA that Stahl had decided to conduct out of dozens of DMCAs, which is very weird. They should know that I had won 50 DMCAs before. What makes them think that a hardware ban is necessary if I have won every DMCA before that? In fact, even a deletion is unnecessary. Wouldn't you think that if every DMCA before this would be resolved, that they would think, oh, maybe this is another situation where, it's a false DMCA, and we should wait before we hand out the ban or the deletion. But they didn't. So I guess that's really it. I'm very grateful that we have Checkpoint Madrid and that Octavium is active, that Octurnus has been restored. But there is a lot of damage that is still done. And this message needs to be spread. So please spread the video to whoever you can, to your friends, to people in your community. Raise awareness about this problem. And pray that Roblox will one day unban my main account, Alexander, alongside all the other accounts that I have made to use my group Octavium, so that I don't have to be inconvenienced with all of these issues. Thank you for watching, and please spread the word.